Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us today on the Saturday afternoon or evening, whichever time of day you might find yourself in. My name is Lizette Amon, and I'm a sister of Lambda Theta Alpha Latin Sorority Incorporated, Delta Nu chapter, as well as a spring 2021 graduate. And it's with great pride and excitement that I welcome you all to the first annual Latinx Graduation Celebration for Loyola University Chicago graduates. Of course, brought to you by the Delta Nu chapter, the Lambda Theta Alpha Latin Sorority Incorporated, which is the first Latin-based sorority in the nation. Our organization was founded in 1975 by our 17 founding mothers who came together with the mission to empower women in all aspects of their lives, including academic achievement, political activism, community service, and created a sisterhood that would last a lifetime while following the principles of unity, love, and respect. The Delta Nu chapter at Loyola University Chicago continues to follow the mission of our founding mothers on Loyola's campus as an organization that aims to provide spaces and opportunities for the Latinx community in higher education, as well as maintain a higher standard of learning and serve as a voice for all students, while allowing independent women on campus to feel a sense of belonging by providing a space to achieve their highest academic and professional potential. We would also like to acknowledge the support we've received through the Student Activities Fund from Student Government Loyola Chicago and the Unity and Diversity Fund from Student Diversity and Multicultural Affairs. Without their funding, we would have not been able to fully celebrate this grand milestone in our lives by providing our fall 2020 and spring 2021 graduates with graduation stoles, which are probably still on the way to most of you. So we appreciate everyone's patience with that, and I will definitely send more updates about the stoles as those updates are shared with me. On a slight personal note, this event is something very dear to my heart. It started off as an idea that was first brought up in the fall of 2019 by Chris McQueen, who previously served as the Assistant Director of Sorority and Fraternity Life at Loyola. As Delta Nu chapter attempted to make this a reality in the spring of 2020 for the class of 2020, we were, of course, suddenly hit with many changes as the pandemic affected us all in different ways, and many events were halted. So we were unable to make this a reality then a year ago. However, a year later, after countless hours of planning, applying, and receiving funding, amongst other details that we have to figure out, we are finally bringing this event to you all. And to share some background as to how this event kind of came to be and kind of the driving force behind it, I have always grown up or been in spaces that weren't necessarily made for me. So I've learned to be patient and flexible. So with those experiences, I've kind of learned and pushed myself to make spaces for myself, but also those around me to ensure quality and equal experiences for all. So, of course, this has influenced many areas of my life, including my roles and experiences at Loyola University Chicago. And going back to that fall 2019 semester in that conversation with Chris McQueen, it came to my attention that there was no affinity-based graduation celebration for Latino, Latina, Latinx identifying students. So with that in mind, and still a bit curious as to why that wasn't a reality prior, I began to speak about this with those in my social circles. And the one theme in everyone's response was, well, if there isn't anything going on, why don't you just do something about it? So after a year and that first attempt last spring of 2020 and going into the year now, with the support of those near to my heart, this has finally become a reality. So I couldn't be happier for all of you lovely people to show interest in this event and really be able to join us today. In a way, I hope this event will be able to stay as my legacy of sorts at Loyola. And I know that my lovely chapter sisters, current and future, will continue to make this event a reality for a lifetime to go. And hopefully, definitely, in person moving forward. So with that in mind, I just wanted us to remember that sometimes it's difficult to be what we cannot see. So we have to continue to work hard to be what the future generations need. And now I will pass on the floor to my hermana Crystal Robledo, who will introduce our speaker for the opening remarks.
Hello, everyone. It is with great honor that I will introduce Doctora Gemma Clope Santa Maria. Doctora Gemma Clope Santa Maria serves as an assistant professor of Latin American history at Loyola University Chicago. Her research deals with questions of violence, security, religion, and gender in Latin America, with a particular focus on Mexico and Central America. Before joining Loyola, she was a visiting fellow at the Kellogg Institute for International Studies at Notre Dame University and assistant professor of international studies at the Instituto Tecnológico Autónomo de México. She holds a PhD in sociology and historical studies from the New School for Social Research and a master in gender and social policy from the London School of Economics. Her research has been supported by several fellowships, including a Fulbright Garcia Robles Scholarship, the Charles A. Hale Fellowship in Mexican History by the Latin American Studies Association, the Women in Humanities Fellowship by the Mexican Academy of Sciences, and the Harry Frank Guggenheim Foundation. Additionally, she is the author in The Vortex of Violence, Lynching, Extralegal Justice, and the State in Post-Revolutionary Mexico. She is also the lead editor of the books Violence and Crime, Representations and Politics, and Human Security and Chronic Violence in Mexico, New Perspectives and Proposals from Below. Her work has been featured in several specialized publications, including Latin American Research Review, the Americas, the Journal of Latin American Studies, Revista Harvard Review of Latin America, and Foreign Affairs Latino America. She has also authored reports for the United Nations Development Program, the Wilson Center for International Scholars, and the Norwegian Peace Building Resource Center. It is with awe and appreciation that we welcome Doctora Gemma Clope Santa Maria to open the celebration today. Doctora Gemma Clope Santa Maria, you have the floor.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Crystal, for that generous introduction. And I want to thank especially to Lisette Amon for the invitation, and of course to the Lambda, Theta, Alpha Latin Sorority Incorporated, Delta Nu chapter, for giving me the great honor to join you today at Loyola's first Latinx Graduation Celebration. It is a great pleasure to be here. I would like to begin my remarks with a personal story. I was born in Nicaragua, a country divided by civil war and political conflict during the 1980s. Like many other Nicaraguan and Central American families at the time, my parents migrated to Mexico to escape the war. Other members of my family came to the United States, also motivated by the need to escape violence and political factionalism. My parents migrated north in the hopes of building a better life for them and their children. They did so, even though they knew this meant abandoning their extended families, their communities, and their home. Like hundreds and thousands of Latin Americans before them, my parents left behind the certainties they knew and embraced the unknown with a sense of hope and courage. In Mexico, I grew up with the awareness of being a migrant, someone whose cultural roots and even a Spanish accent was different from those of my classmates and friends. My family received and hosted many other Central American and South American families who, like us, found refuge in Mexico. In one same week, we would be eating Salvadoran pupusas, Argentinian empanadas, and Mexican tacos while listening to Mercedes Sosa, Inti Limani, or Carlos Mejia Godoy. Growing up in Mexico City, among such a community of migrants, families, and friends, I knew that despite all of our differences, we were all united by our identity as Latin Americans. It was only when I came to the United States, in my late 20s, when I discovered and fully embraced my identity as a Latina woman. It was only then that I came to understand what it meant to stand on the shoulders of the thousands of women, men, and children that have arrived to this country before me to build a life for themselves and their families. Women and men who, through their hard work and struggles, help enrich the culture, democratic life, and economic prospects of this nation. You can now see why being here with you today gives me such a sense of pride and honor. Since my first year at Loyola in 2018, I have had the privilege of teaching dozens of first and second generation Latinx students who are eager to learn more about the history and culture of Latin America and about the ways in which migration and transnational ties have made Latin America a central component of this culture, of this country's culture, politics, and economic development. Teaching at Loyola has been an incredible journey. Not only are Loyola students smart and talented, they are also truly concerned about the world and the challenges of economic inequality, injustice, and violence that affect the United States, Latin America, and other regions across the world. In a true reflection of the Ignatian mission that informs this university, Loyola students combine academic rigor with global awareness, a deep sense of social justice, and a commitment to put into practice the transformative power of education. No matter from which discipline they come from, anthropology, nursing, mathematics, engineering, Loyola Latinx students share a passion for Latin America and for creating a better understanding of the intimate connections that exist between the United States and Latin America's history of revolutions, counter-revolutions, and democratization. Today, as many of you know, Latin America faces great challenges of insecurity and crime, many of which inform people's decision to migrate north. Latin America is considered today one of the world's most dangerous regions, particularly when measured in terms of homicide rates. Some of the cities with the highest incidences of violence are located in Mexico and in the countries of the Northern Triangle of Central America, Honduras, Guatemala, El Salvador. It is not a coincidence then that these are the countries of origin of most of the refugees that are coming to the United States in search of protection and a viable alternative to rebuild their lives. In the year 2018 alone, more than 38,000 unaccompanied children were apprehended at the US-Mexico border, together with over 100,000 people traveling as families from Guatemala, El Salvador, and Honduras. The history of this migration is, of course, not new. Mexican and Central American migration has been on the rise since the 1970s, but it has experienced a significant surge since the year 2010 as a result of criminal violence, food insecurity, environmental disasters, and economic hardship. Whereas in the past, people were escaping fully fledged civil wars, like my parents and others did, today, Latin Americans are leaving behind countries that are considered fully functional democracies and that participate actively in the world's economy, but that are engulfed in a serious crisis of insecurity and violence. These are countries that live a violent peace. The future of these countries is, however, neither fixed nor fatal. In all my classes, with the help of Loyola students' intellectual curiosity, we try to make sense of the paradoxes of Latin American democracies. We look at the ways in which economic inequality, lack of reforms to the security and justice sectors, and increasing reliance of militarized and short-term security responses have all contributed to undermine this country's security and rule of law. We also imagine ways in which the United States can contribute to change this reality by creating more humanitarian and strategic forms of assistance centered on prevention, human security, and harm reduction. As Loyola graduates, and especially as Latinx Loyola graduates, you are a central part of this transformation. Driven by your commitment to social justice and the knowledge you have amassed throughout your years at college, I am certain that you will help create a more dignified and empowered reality for the thousands of first and second generation Latinas, Latinos, and Latinx that live in the United States. I am certain too that you will contribute creating more constructive and positive forms of collaboration between the United States and Latin America, and to foster a more responsible and fair approach to respond to these nations' opportunities and challenges. Your stories and your particular professional trajectories will, I am sure, open the doors for more generations of Latinx to join higher education and to contribute through their presence and actions to create more diverse and inclusive universities. As Latinx graduates who have transnational ties, multicultural families, and grew up with different accents, sounds, and even flavors, you are the future of this nation. You stand on the shoulders of great men and women who have played a foundational role in making this nation a more diverse, democratic, and inclusive society. I know this year has been particularly challenging and grim, that many of us have lost friends and family and have been saddened by the impossibility of enjoying some of the most basic things that make us feel part of a larger community, particularly a Latinx community, including sharing food, hugging each other, dancing, celebrating together our accomplishments and milestones. Despite of this, or rather because of this, the fact that you are here today, that you made it through this year and were able to successfully complete your college education is the greatest testament to your resilience, tenacity, and relentless capacity to reinvent yourself in the face of new challenges. I feel nothing but pride of each and every one of you. And I know that you did not make it alone, that just like you and I stand on the shoulders of hundreds of generations that before us decided to make a life in this nation, today you stand on the shoulders of your parents, siblings, cousins, friends, partners, and teachers, many of whom I'm sure are here with you today to celebrate this moment. Although you were not alone in this journey, the merit is, of course, yours. Please take a moment to honor and celebrate this moment of great distinction and achievement. Take a deep breath and brace yourselves, because I am confident that you have extraordinary lives ahead of you. Now that the torch is yours, in the good Loyola tradition, go and set the world on fire. Or said in Latin American Spanish, vayan y enciendan el mundo, que el mundo es suyo. Muchas gracias. And bravo.
Thank you so much, Doctora Clop Santa Maria, for mixing in a bit of your own experience, history, the field that you study, all your knowledge, and just sharing wonderful words that I'm sure will inspire us to keep moving forward with pride and just an ability to transform the world, like you mentioned. And I'm sure that we will certainly set the world on fire one step at a time. And now we move on to the most anticipated moment of the night, in which we acknowledge our Latino, Latina, Latinx identifying graduates. And we will present you with the names of those who are interested in partaking in this event via their submissions in LU community. However, with this in mind, we also acknowledge and celebrate any and all Latino, Latina, Latinx identifying graduates from Loyola University Chicago, whether they were able to join us today or not. So let us begin. Marianne Alvarez Gull, first generation graduate, graduating with a BBA in marketing. Myself, Lisette Amon, first generation graduate, graduating with a BS in psychology, BA in theology, and a Catholic studies minor. Mary Bayana, first generation graduate, graduating with a BS in criminal justice and criminology. Samantha Bejarano, first generation graduate, graduating with a BS in psychology. Guadalupe Blanco, first generation graduate, graduating with a BS in psychology and a BS in human services. Sasha de la Cruz, graduating with a BS in psychology and a biology minor. Jessica Diaz, first-generation graduate, graduating with a BS in biochemistry and a psychology minor. Jocelyn Escobar Jimenez, first-generation graduate, graduating with a BS in psychology. Jocelyn Esparza, graduating with a BA in advertising and public relations. Kiara Esparza, graduating with a BA in advocacy and social change with a healthcare administration minor. Salvador Flores III, graduating with a BBA in sport management and the Spanish language minor. Lisbeth Herrera, first-generation graduate, graduating with a BS in psychology and a BA in Spanish, as well as a women's studies and gender studies minor. Lauren Juarez Duran, graduating with a BA in political science. Francesca Marquese Gonzalez, graduating with a BA in global and international studies, BA in women's studies and gender studies, as well as an anthropology minor and French language and literature minor. Jasmine Martinez, graduating with a BBA in marketing and a management minor. Marley Mora, first-generation graduate, graduating with a BBA in international business and a marketing minor. Natalia Moreno, first-generation graduate, graduating with a BA in environmental policy. Melinaya Moten, graduating with a BA in advertising and public relations. Samantha Narvaez, graduating with a Juris Doctor and a first-generation graduate. Jennifer Quispe, first-generation graduate, graduating with a BS in criminal justice and criminology. Lorena Ramos, first-generation graduate, graduating with a BS in forensic science. Janet Rivera, first-generation graduate, graduating with a BS in criminal justice, as well as a BA in philosophy. Frances Romero, first-generation graduate, graduating with a BS in statistics, as well as a Spanish language and literature minor and a mathematics minor. Daisy Ruiz, first-generation graduate, graduating with a BS in healthcare administration. Jaleesa Soto, first-generation graduate, graduating with a BS in healthcare administration. Lilia Valdez, first-generation graduate, graduating with a Juris Doctor and a Master of Public Policy. Jacqueline Vargas Lara, first-generation graduate with a BS in psychology. Cindy Villagran Lopez, first-generation graduate, graduating with a BS in psychology, as well as a philosophy minor. And finally, but not least, Allison Villarreal, graduating with a BBA in finance, as well as a BBA in information business systems. And with that, that concludes our presentation of the graduates. And we will now hear from Mary Bayana, who is graduating with a BS in criminal justice and criminology and currently serves as the chapter president for the Delta Nu chapter, the Lambda Theta Alpha Latin Sorority Incorporated. She will share about her experience, and I'm sure that many of us will be able to connect with her story. Mary, the floor is yours.
Thank you, sis. Okay, For starters, I would like to give a shout out to my sister Lisette Amon for her hard work and dedication for bringing this to our lovely campus. It is with great honor to be here today. I am beyond proud to be the third generation college student. I am thankful for the sacrifices my papi and my mommy have made in order to help me get to this very moment. A moment of pure joy within the Bayana household, because after being the first one to receive an associate's degree, I once again become the first one to receive a bachelor's degree. A huge shout out to my parents for being able to send me and put me through my dream undergrad school. Navigating through the admission process was not an easy process because it was a foreign world to me. However, my abuelito always tells me, échale ganas, therefore leche ganas, and navigated through the process on my own. Got accepted, put a lot of hard work that consisted of 14-hour school days, early mornings, and sleepless nights, which have brought me to this very moment today, a moment where I am so close to becoming hot over 2 degrees. As a transfer student during the spring 2021 semester, a time where everyone's lives changed due to the ongoing health pandemic, my time at Loyola was cut short. The luxury to enjoy a full semester at our beautiful campus was not given to me, yet I found a family within Loyola, a family that was given to me when I became a sister of Lambda, Theta, Alpha, Latinx Sorority Incorporated, Delta Nu chapter. A family consisting of Crystal, Jazz, and Liz. A family that has allowed me to grow and flourish into a better version of myself and will continue to do so. As a first generation college student, I never thought I was sorority worthy, let alone be chapter president, but here I am, learning and showing everyone that you can do what you set your mind to. Even though I was born in Chicago and raised in the suburbs, I am an immigrant. An immigrant who is a result of the American dream. And despite the hurdles that life has thrown at me, I persisted and I persisted because I see how hard my parents work in order to pay for my college. And because I am a chingona Latinx universal woman who knows her potential because there are still big dreams and aspirations that are left to accomplish. Graduating from Loyola is only one of the many goals that I have established for myself. And this bachelor's degree is not only mine, but my abuelito's as well. There's still greater and bigger things. Thank you.
Thank you, sis, for a wonderful reflection. Definitely an emotional one, and we truly appreciate your vulnerability in that. So now, hopefully you all can still see the slides. But now with that spirit and that reminder to continue to keep echándole ganas, we would like to open up the floor to any of our graduates present. If they would like to share a reflection, piece of advice, experience, etc. with us, feel free to unmute yourself and of course, with Zoom it can be a little difficult, but I'm sure we can all manage. And I will just keep the floor open for a bit and then we can continue. All right. So with that being said, I now once again pass the floor to my sister, Crystal Robledo, who will introduce our final speaker for the night. Crystal, go ahead.
Thank you. As we come to a close this evening, we want to warmly welcome Roy Saldana Jr., who will share some closing remarks. Roy serves as the Director of Achieving College Excellence, a department he has built which is rooted in the civil rights movement pillars of educational access, equity, and support. In late March, he celebrated his 6th-year anniversary with the university. Roy earned a Bachelor of Science degree in Humanistic Studies with a Spanish minor from the University of Wisconsin-Green Bay. He earned a Master of Science degree in Library and Information Science with a specialization in Community Informatics from the University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign. As His first opportunity of professional employment, he worked for the school district of Howard Swamico in Wisconsin for 1.5 years, providing support services to English as a second language, ESL, and students grades K through 12. For the next 4 years, he was employed by the University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign and eventually moved to Chicago to serve as the director of the TRIO Educational Opportunity Center for the City Colleges of Chicago. He joined Loyola in 2015 and considers Chicago, Loyola, and Achieving College Excellence, ACE, a perfect mix of work-life balance. Roy, you have the floor.
Roy, are you there? You might be having some.
I am. I
Okay,
lost track of the
go.
mute button.
Sounds good, thank you.
Here we go. Greetings and thank you to Lambda, Theta, Alpha, Latin Sorority, Delta Nu Chapter for hosting this event. It is events like this that are shining lights in our community during times that can easily be drowned out by civil unrest, systemic oppression, and concerning news stories that seem to plague our everyday. But organizations, students, and community members putting their best foot forward is what will bring us to a new day, and I'm so thrilled to be invited to be one of the keynote speakers tonight. I come from Green Bay, Wisconsin. The rest of my family was born and raised in Uvalde, Texas, a small town an hour from the Mexico-US border. In order to receive better healthcare during my mother's pregnancy, my mother brought us up to Green Bay, a place that he knew very well. His family had spent their childhood going back and forth between Texas and Wisconsin in order to work in the fields as migrant workers. His childhood family consisted of 12 sons, 2 daughters, and both parents who collectively made money to support their family. I was close to being a native of Texas, but during month 8 of my mother's pregnancy, my parents made the drive to Wisconsin. From that point on, I only left the state 3 times before moving to Illinois in 2003. This meant that I never knew my mother's family. I met her sister twice and was raised with a cousin my mother raised as a daughter. But otherwise, we had no support or contact with her 8 siblings or other family members. My sisters and I were literally those kids who were in Texas one day, moved up to Wisconsin, and were never seen again. No one from Texas has ever called or engaged with us in any way. As careless and disregarding of her family as that seems to be, I eventually realized that it was probably for the best. Sadly, the same goes from my father's side. The best contact with them is no contact under any circumstances. Family doesn't always mean people who you share a family tree or lineage with. As a young person, I was very different looking than my peers at that time. Green Bay, as I jokingly say to my friends from back then, was full of a lot of blonde hair and blue-eyed kids. And then there was me with a permanent tan all year round, dark eyes and thick black hair. I stuck out, but I made it work. I was in 4th grade when I learned the power of what an educator can really do in the life of a young person. My 4th grade teacher, Mrs. Carol Smokovich, was the first adult outside of my home that I knew cared about me. When you're a child from a struggling family with no adult or family support outside of what your mother can do, it is often the teachers in your life that fill the void. I indeed learned from Mrs. Smokovich, but especially saw that being an educator meant so many more things than just teaching. You played the listening ear, the advocate, the therapist, the social worker, and sometimes the pillar that tells a student that they are cared for within the safety of the classroom. By 4th grade, I certainly needed this element within my life. Knowing the security that this gave me has greatly affected how I do my current job. Lessons that I learned and observed as a 4th grader are still with me. This certainly proves the effectiveness of my elementary school and the educators who led it, and gave me a good vision for how to do my current job as the Director of Achieving College Excellence. In March of 2015, I was hired for the position for a variety of reasons, but especially for my very lengthy time with the TRIO initiative. ACE is a TRIO program funded by the US government with the purpose of supporting first-generation, lower-income, and students with disabilities. As a former Upper Bound student in high school through the University of Wisconsin, Green Bay, I've been with the initiative now for 29 years. I don't imagine I'll do anything else anytime soon. When one finds something that perfectly aligns with their goals, passions, and ideals, the job really feels like a job. It is this approach that helps ACE excel to the degree that it does. 75% of ACE scholars who are both low-income and first-generation college students graduate within 6 years at 85%. whereas 40% of students nationally who are both first-gen and lower income graduate in 6 years, per the Pell Institute Data Story of the Month report published in November. We are more than doubling the national graduation rate. Something special is clearly happening with ACE, and I look forward to continuing the defying of data as we typically do. One of the greatest lessons I have learned in life is the art of listening. Listening to people speak, sure, but listening to a much deeper level in what the world and what energy and what auras and what patterns were trying to tell me. As I reflected back on moments I was certain were telling me grander sized things, I came to the following 2 examples that I hope prove to be helpful for you to reflect and learn from. Number 1, saying goodbye to my father. I was in 3rd grade when I visited my father for what turned out to be the last time. He and my mother had parted ways at that point for a good number of years, and I was never excited about our visits. He lived in the country, and I've always been much more interested in city life. My visits with him had the rare moment of emotional warmth, but were typically filled with nervous anxiety, fearing what the evening would entail. Typically excessive drinking, aggressive behavior amongst his brothers and other guests, and domestic violence between he and his then wife. I always came home to my mother's house relieved that the weekend was over and always wished my father would make better decisions in his life, but I knew he wouldn't. As the evening ignited at his place that final visit, I looked around at the repeated sequence of events that had played out so many times before and knew this was the last time. That I would never be back, that I would never change my mind, and that I was making a much larger decision that would affect not just that night, but my entire life. I saw adults never learning from their mistakes. I saw self-destructive behavior play out in its usual ways. And I saw the power of addiction. I was wise enough to see that the power of alcohol was never a fight I could defeat for my father. That was his fight. Not even the love a parent feels for their child is stronger than addiction. So as a 3rd grader, I made the decision that if I was ever going to get anywhere in life, I had to leave the life I had with my father behind. And I was certain in that moment, I was making a decision that would affect my life in the grand scheme of things, not just for that night. Our decisions snowball. Making important decisions in any given moment is one thing, but knowing how long-lasting these decisions can be is the true indicator that you understand what you are doing and what you stand for. But also that changing your mind is not always an option. I knew changing my mind was simply never going to be a thing, and I kept to that because I refused to let history repeat itself. As a 3rd grader, I knew I was making a very adult decision, and I was absolutely certain I made the right one despite the severity and change that would result from it. I'm certain that the life I have now, decades later, truly started that night. The beginning of my path toward success and a healthy lifestyle started that night. And it all started because I saw what was in front of me and believed what I saw. Number 2, visiting UW Green Bay and getting hired. I had graduated college and was working for the school district of Howard Suamico just outside of Green Bay. My bank was part of the University of Wisconsin system, so from time to time, I would return to campus to do bank transactions. One particular visit, I stopped by the bank and was walking to my car. I had already left the building and was halfway to my car when something stopped me and told me to go back. I decided to visit the student services area where I had been a student worker freshman and sophomore year. Upon entering the office, the secretary I had known back then immediately said, "Wait, what are you doing right now?" I replied, "For a job?" And then I said I was working in a K-12 school district. She then said, "So you have the summers off. Send me your resume when you get home." She began telling me that the university needed someone to run the pre-college programs for that upcoming summer and that I would be perfect for the job. She said that once I sent her my resume, she would bring it to her supervisor so they could discuss him hiring me. And she delivered. I got a call the very next day from the director, and he brought me in to chat about the job. And the day after that, I was hired by the university I had once been a teenage summer camper with. It was truly a first circle moment in my story with UW Green Bay. But thankfully, I knew what the moment could bring me in the long term outside of the university. I needed a resume booster, some university experience that could show what I could do administratively, that I could plan a summer program, execute the plan, and deliver results. And that I indeed did. I brought the university a 369% enrollment increase from the year before and saved the programs from being eliminated. And not only were they not eliminated, but they were given nearly $60,000 more for the next year's budget. Though this job was not permanent, came with 0 benefits, and paid $10 an hour, I knew this was a chance I needed. I needed to turn a very thin structure into a solid foundation so the next university would take notice and see that I was a worthy chance to take in hiring. Instead of being frustrated that the opportunity was temporary and didn't pay much, I knew what I could turn it into. I didn't focus so much on the limitations within the moment, but the long-term potential. I'm incredibly thankful that I knew to see the situation that day at its true depth and often wonder, what if I had not listened to my instinct to go back to the office after my bank visit? What if I had gotten in my car and drove away from what was my destiny to work for my alma mater, which then led me to get hired in Champaign, and thus resulted in me moving away to eventually land at Loyola in such a wonderful position and department. I truly can't imagine how life would have turned out without what the snowball effects of this quick bank visit gave me. But I'm thankful I recognized the long-term potential within the moment. I listened close enough to understand and gave the plan time to play out. You don't always get what you want immediately within a situation. But if you listen and recognize the moment and its potential, it will certainly make sense in the long term. So be patient. And that brings us to today. We are celebrating the accomplishments of many students who in their own way have defied odds, data, and expectations. And this is certainly to be celebrated. But we should strive to understand the depth of what we have truly done in doing these things, because it is only then that we can better place ourselves in our new roles as college graduates and future professionals who will continue to break down the systemic walls that have been built to serve as roadblocks. And it is only then that we can better prep the next generation to recognize what has been laid out for them, but also what they are building off of for the next generation, and the next generation, and the generation after that. It takes a community. There is no such thing as a one-person success story. Higher education was never supposed to be for anyone who wasn't from a wealthy family. Rich people set up the educational system in a way that only allowed already rich people to enter the institutions, so to, in the long term, keep rich people rich. If only the children of rich people enter the college or university, they are the only ones who get the job training, and thus are the only ones who are qualified for jobs, and thus are the only ones who get hired for those jobs. They will be the ones who get paid, promoted, and will eventually manage the operation, and in these management roles will be the ones who determine who gets hired, fired, promoted, and given raises. That is a lot of power, and few people once given that power want to give it up, because with that power comes economic stability. When you live in a capitalist society like we do in the US, money does indeed make the world go round. These systems build off of each other. And once these systems began working so well for the very select few, is it really a wonder why they fought so hard to keep schools segregated? We all remember those videos from social studies class in which Black children were being hosed and attacked by police dogs to keep them from entering their local school in the 50s and 60s. What we were really seeing in those videos were terrified people watching the beginning of their oppressive to others, but wonderful for them, system start to fall. It was the beginning for students like us who were never meant to be in the building to enter, succeed, and walk out of that school with a degree, job ready, and fit to lead within our chosen profession. Every time one of us walks across that graduation stage, we have stood up to the hierarchy and told them that the ideas they had for us are irrelevant and that we will make decisions regarding our own destiny. And it is this power that ignites a snowball effect of what we see around us today. If first-generation college students, lower income students, and other groups of people not born into wealth begin having disposable income, we now begin to run other aspects of society. We can support certain companies that support youth activities in our communities, for example. We can support schools that actually teach our next generation relevant life skills and to challenge a Eurocentric whitewash version of how life should be lived and understood. And we can also support politicians who support us. And it is this last item that truly begins to flip the script. It is if each of us identify a politician who truly embodies what the community needs, volunteering or donating to their campaigns is an effective way to bring your power to Washington, D.C. to in turn support legislation that will have positive snowball effects in your community. But once we do this, we need to build in a very specific civic engagement goal of monitoring who we send to Washington, D.C. to represent us. Because elected officials work for us, not the other way around. And if we don't like what we see, we always have the power to vote them out. Self-centered politicians count on the community to be too busy to pay attention. This is how we get left behind by people who need us more than we need them. But if we can find that fine balance of career and civic engagement, progress is inevitable. And it all would have started by you submitting your application to Loyola, knowing that you were a qualified student who would contribute to the learning environment of the university. The day you began your journey at Loyola was potentially a journey that focused on you solely. But once you cross over into being a college graduate with a credential no one will ever be able to take away, you now cross over into a much larger journey, a journey focused on community and the greater good. So what will you do with that journey? Whatever that answer is, please recognize the cultural and historical significance of this moment of graduating. Celebrate it and enjoy the potential waiting for you, because your train has come in.
Thank you so much, Roy. You're always greatly appreciated, and we really appreciate you sharing not only about your journey, but allowing us the opportunity to learn from that journey that you've had thus far. And I'm more than certain that at least one thing has stuck out to all of us individually, and it's something that we will continue to think about as we go on our own journeys. Like you said, we can already hear the train chugging away, so that's very exciting. And with this, we have concluded our event for the evening. So we want to just take a moment to thank everyone that joined us today, whether it's graduates, family, friends, staff, faculty, and all departments and offices at Loyola University Chicago that have aided us in the process of, coming about this event and the successful planning and execution of it. So we all hope that you will continue to dream big and work hard. And for our students out there that, we're still going into the end of the semester and coming about finals, we will send you all energy and hugs and just that final push that we need to seal the deal. So with all of that, we just want to say thank you to you all, and we hope you enjoyed your evening with us, and we will send more information about the stoles as we get it as well. So thank you all.
Thank you everyone for joining us.